Hi, welcome, Holly. Good morning from me. Good evening to you. How are you doing today?
I am doing so well. Thank you for having me today.
Absolutely, yeah. You get the rite of passage of being the first person and of hopefully many from Databricks that has been on the channel with us. So welcome for that.
I think
Thank
I'll
you so
say
much.
technically the second. We had Lipping on before, but she's left
Yeah,
Databricks now to go to Tablet Editor. So you're the first
yeah,
person on who's still at Databricks. Let's say that.
exactly.
Yeah, so I've been at Databricks for 7 years now, which is quite a long time, given that when I started, we're at a tiny WeWork in the back end of London, and now we've grown to a massive company. But at the moment, I work in a team called Developer Relations. It is an awesome job. It means I get to go and speak to lots of people about Databricks, what it does well, what it doesn't do. And you might be saying, Holly, that sounds like you go to a lot of events and go on a lot of live streams, and that is true. That is exactly what I do. And it's a really good, fun job and a great platform to talk about.
Yeah, well, and it's rapidly growing, and you are continuing to add like new platform branches, I guess, for an analogy of things in the last like few years, because I I would assume you're the users and everything that you else that you have for consumption and utilization has probably been increasing fairly exponentially with clientele of the last few years.
Absolutely. But we are in this interesting phenomenon where I guess when I joined, I knew every single bit of the platform really, really in detail. And now, as we've gone on, as time has gone on and we've introduced new features, I realized that as a percentage, maybe that number is going down about kind of the true depth that I understand the entire platform. But yeah, it is enormous now. It does do so many additional things. And I'm really looking forward today to being able to talk through what Databricks does. And if people don't know, I really hope this is going to be useful for them to really start at the beginning, to go through the basics, but then also build that up so that you can understand kind of like how this would fit into various different scenarios. Again, what it's really good for.
And the what I like to do with any of the guests that we have on before we get started is give you a chance to do a little introduction about yourself. Feel free to share anything you do related to work, anything fun that you might have as tidbits about just what you do with life. But we'll use that and then eventually segue into kind of the topic of the day and throw on that screen share whenever we're ready.
Yeah, sure. So, right from the beginning, hi, my name is Holly Smith. Again, I work for Databricks. Like I said, I've worked here for a long time, and I started basically doing kind of technical account management, and I realized that was a lot of meetings to go to more meetings. So instead, I spent most of my time at Databricks in a team called Professional Services, which is kind of their consulting side of it. I did that for about 4 or 5 years. So I spent a lot of time really getting to know and understand and solving kind of candidly like the hardest data problems we had with Databricks. Again, it's grown a huge amount over time. But I decided that actually I really quite like explaining things. And so I moved to developer relations about 2 years ago. I'm really enjoying it. To be able to speak to people who maybe don't have as much context around Databricks and help everyone understand, again, what is the art of the possible? How can this make things a lot easier for you? For people that are watching at the moment, if you have questions, I absolutely love it when people get stuck in with the chat. So if you have questions, please don't feel like you have to wait for the end or anything like that. Just get stuck in and ask any questions that you might have. As for what do I do outside of work? I mean, I travel a lot anyway with work. So I do like to be a bit cheeky and tack on a few extra days in various different places around the world.
Of course.
So not a huge amount of time for kind of personal hobbies, but I do travel quite a lot, and I get through an enormous amount of books as well. So that's probably so the fun thing about me is that probably makes me sound really boring, but boy oh boy do I get through a lot of books.
I will say the thing that I have a very three just points of a few things you mentioned. So the recent one on books, it makes me happy to see there was like I think an article in the New York Times where it's talking about how Gen Z is like almost like going back to analog with a lot of stuff. So they're buying more records, they're buying more books, they like I think when you ask like 9 out of like 10 out of 10 would you ever get rid of social media? No. But if everybody got rid of social media, like they're all like, yes, absolutely. Like if you could just delete it. So, but I think there's a burnout on digital and people wanted to go back to like tangible, tactile. So I do love from a book perspective that books have had a resurgence. There's been an uptick in sales of that versus like ebooks and others. For travel, I love my Kindle for sure because I can have the world on it. But at home, a physical book is so much nicer to read, right?
Oh, but I even like a proper book when I travel because I like giving it to someone else. Like once I've read a book, the odds I'm going to read it again slim to none. So I like the idea of being able to pass it on and give it to someone else. But that does mean that I've been in some very strange places and just given people books before, thinking, I think you'd like this, and I'm in, I don't know, Costa Rica or somewhere, which is someone I've just met. So maybe that's a quirk from me.
There is something fun too about reading a borrowed book from a friend. Like I'm reading the first in the King Killer Chronicles from a friend that he's just like, oh, I've had this for like 20 or like 18 years since high school. Like, and I've read this like 7 times. Like, that's really cool. I get to read a book that's been with you for decades. Okay, this makes it more fun to read now. The other point that I'll just mention is to years of flipping, I think from development to training. Steve and I would both, I think, agree on like there's something special where there's an energy that you get for certain people where it's so much fun to train and be able to like get a room of people who like leave like, that was so cool. I like, thank you for sharing that. Like it's rewarding in a special way that like building a cool report or a platform or something with tech just doesn't quite hit on the same chords.
I mean, it's nice to be able to share it with people, but I also really love having something automated, you know, like one of those Rube Goldberg machines. You just kind of like, you've taken a really manual process and you just do one thing and then all of a sudden it kind of goes all the way through. But no one else wants to hear about that. Like, I find that really interesting. But trying to make that interesting is to other people. I feel like it's akin to, I don't know, having like a model railway and trying to show people about the model railway and they don't care.
It's almost like you build something and you're just like, man, I wish there was somebody to high five right now because that it finally worked after the 30th try and it's all the pieces are moving.
It was definitely worth that 20 hours to automate that 10-minute job. Absolutely, yes.
The best developer will spend 20 hours to save 5 minutes of time, right?
Perfect. Yep, love it. Absolutely. Great use of time.
Last little question from you because you use, and then we'll flip over to the screen share. But you mentioned one of the things you were doing early on at Databricks was like solving the hardest data problems. Do you have a favorite anecdote from that of like what was your favorite hard problem to solve? And it could be favorite in terms of it was the worst, the best, but just something that stuck out to you.
I think some of the favorite ones tend to be along the lines of customers trying to like hard code it and build it their own way. And then you're like, hey, you know, we have this feature and it does this all for you, right? So very early on, I was in a project and this is old fashioned machine learning. They would do a whole bunch of things like that about kind of model versioning and, you know, how to track everything that's being scored and where that's going, all the saving things, and being able to turn around and be like, hey, we've got this thing called MLflow. It's open source and it comes for free in Databricks. Maybe you want to give that a go. And they're like, oh, wow, you just cut up 6 months of development time. So that was pretty sweet. And then another one was very similar when it came to Unity Catalog. And this kind of highly regulated customer are really getting their knickers in a twist about governance and all the things like that. And I was like, hey, we have this thing called Unity Catalog. I'm pretty sure it's going to do about 90% of what you needed to do. But the remaining 10%, you know, we can work with you on building something like that. But like, you are worrying about a problem that's being solved, so you can worry about it a lot less now. They're the really nice ones, to be honest.
I think the ones where like you end up for the customer anecdote you just mentioned, where like you build something for so long, like, oh, there's a button for that. Like it's like crap. Well, you know what? It's learnings along the way, and I learned a lot of new things. Yeah.
Yeah, I know all the APIs in detail now, but yes, you kind of didn't have to. Yes.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, excellent. Getting on to the topic of the day today, then, if you're ready to do a screen share, I can throw it up and we can get started from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to throw it back to you two, actually, because I have a diagram in front of me, but I also have like Databricks, the platform, in front of me as well. So given that we've got so much new stuff that's going on, should I start with a bit of a diagram and then I can just go into my example?
Yeah, I always think of it like landing the plane. We're at 35,000 foot and you drop the altitude slowly.
All right then. So in front of me, I have a bit of a diagram about what Databricks is. And for anyone who's sat here watching thinking, I've heard of Databricks, but no one is ever able to give me a clear answer about what it is. There's probably a good reason for that, and that's because it does one heck of a lot of things. So this is, again, my very high-level view of what Databricks is. I'm going to start here at the bottom with open format. So the idea with Databricks is that it is your data, and it's available in your cloud storage, and this is something that you're able to use. It's not necessarily something that you have to migrate into. You don't have to put your data in Databricks per se. The idea is your data is there and it can be read and written from other places, but also you can then use it with Databricks as well. And the kind of magic formula that we put on the top there to make that data ready for kind of big data processing, you can either use Delta Lake or you can use Iceberg. If you're using something like Parquet, this is kind of like the next level. It's just some very clever metadata that sits on top of it. And so that's still true. Delta and Iceberg, they're open source technologies. I think Fabric has their own slight fork of Delta, which I've completely forgotten the name of. But close one eye, squint with the other. They're very, very similar. From there, you've got the governance layer on top. And governance means a lot of different things to different people. And so I do have a slightly better diagram over here in terms of like, what do we mean by governance? Not just kind of stuff like access control, but lineage and cost controls and the quality monitoring and business semantics. If people watching are kind of Power BI visualization type people, business semantics, this is going to be really relevant to you in terms of things like having that kind of understanding in the context of your business with the data and kind of rubber stamping and saying, what is good data? How do you calculate all of these particular types of things as well? And again, we have a lot of stuff within Databricks as well. So it isn't just like the data itself. It's any files that you might use, because it's not just about structured data. It's also unstructured data as well. So if you've got like JSON files that are coming from particular log somewhere, or maybe you've got like a PDF document somewhere, or even like CSV files, PowerPoints, that kind of stuff, that's all managed by Unity Catalog as well. We've got like MCP servers, which are kind of very new. And again, if you're going down the kind of agents AI route as well, all of this is also governed with Unity Catalog as well. We also do a lot of federation to other platforms as well, because let's face it, as much as we like to pretend that Databricks is like the one true only way that you can do data, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. And so we have the ability to connect with lots of other data systems. Now, this isn't just like a single connection and then you again ingest everything in. Some of the queries that we have, you can push down to a third-party system as well. So if you just need to make that connection to Fabric to return only one particular thing and you don't want to do the faff of a migration, we do have that kind of federation capability as well. But let's say actually this isn't another query engine that you want to go and look at or retrieve results from. Actually, we just need to have it as a source. And so this is where our next layer kind of comes in terms of being able to get data from everywhere. So I'm actually going to start counterintuitively on the right-hand side here. So we've got Lakeflow, and this is the ability to ingest data. So some systems are data providers. If you've got SAP, that's a massive one. If you're using something like, I don't know, Google Ads, or maybe you're using Salesforce, great example. We ingest loads of log data from all over the place. Being able to bring that in, I think we've got about a good few hundred connectors at the moment. So if you want to be able to bring that in, you absolutely can do. Please don't quiz me on all 100 right now, but if there are specifics, we can go and have a look at the UI.
It'll be on the test.
Yeah, it'll be on the test. Yeah, excellent. And then we also have Lakehouse. And if you are an analytics person, or if you are a kind of like Power BI person, this will be very familiar to you. So this is the ability to do kind of analytics once you're here. And again, the great thing about it is that you don't need to kind of copy your data anywhere. All of this is built on that one version of your data. So if you want to take that data and you want to do some real-time streaming with it, you absolutely can do. But if you also want to do some analytics with it, again, you can do. Once it's there, no need to duplicate and replicate it all over the place. And then the final thing, which is probably a bit newer to people, this has only been out for about 12 months now, is Lakebase, which is I want to say ultimately manage Postgres, but it does do a few extra bits and pieces as well. So if you're building something like an app, if you want that kind of like sub-millisecond response time because it's driving an app, or something that's not kind of like analytics, where you are serving that to an end user and they, it's not really in the analytics world, this is where Lakebase would come in. I've kind of danced around it a little bit, and that is AI. So we do have our own AI capabilities, and I promise you it is more than just a little Sparkles logo at the top. I can go into a bit more detail about this, but everyone's trying to do AI at the moment. Agents are kind of all the rage. Yeah. But the idea is that with Databricks, you can have that context about what is going on in your organization, what is it that's happening here. I personally was really skeptical about it for a very long time. And then I started to see some of the projects that were rolling in that were really successful. And I sat down one day and I think I went through like a month of successful projects that had been delivered with Databricks, with the account teams. And I'm going to be honest, like 80% of them were things like document extraction. So for a very, very long time now, PDFs have just been kind of like a place for information to go and die. Mm-hmm. This is something that Databricks is candidly phenomenal at, is being able to extract all of that data at an enormous scale, enormous savings. I think I heard of one. Basically, it was a bunch of traders and it used to take them something like 8 hours to put together a report, but they started using Databricks to do all of this stuff, and mm-hmm. It kind of put a chatbot on top of it. And instead of 8 hours for these traders to make the decisions, they got it down to 15 minutes, which is
really nice.
Wild. And it saved them something like $250 million a year, which is phenomenal. Anyway, so that's kind of the enterprise context. Again, we've got Agentbricks, which is part of that story. And again, all of this is governed. AI BI, so this is the kind of agentic business intelligence. Oh, I hate that phrase, sorry. But this is the business intelligence. It's not just about dashboards. It's not just about connecting to Power BI. It is about being able to have something that is understandable by your organization, so that a lot of people can, again, self-serve. This term has been around for a very long time, but to be able to get more understanding from your data with less of that need for an intervention from an analyst with that kind of 2-week turnaround of like, oh, do you need a new dashboard with the thing? Now there's a lot better ways to integrate with that. And part of that is the kind of business semantics and kind of metric views and things like that. Custom apps, and then it's got and more, and that just happens to be kind of like one of the most comprehensive data engineering platforms you possibly see on the market, and that is available. So that's a very quick overview of Databricks. Before I dive into a demo, is anything here new to you or that you weren't expecting me to talk about?
What do you see as having the greatest growth of like adoption in the next 12 months from anything either new or existing with all of these?
Ooh, interesting. So if you asked me this 2 years ago, this kind of AI BI Lakehouse piece, that was, sorry, all of the product teams have massive competition between them about who can have the crown of like the fastest growing product. And so it was AI BI that sits on top of Lakehouse. It's kind of the compute that you've got there. And then Lakebase came along, and that was pretty much stealing the crown, because a lot of agentic work that you might want to do if you're going to serve it really quickly, that's something. So if you've got like a chat bot, you can't have something waiting for the kind of back end to spin up to be like, oh, let me do select star from data. That is something that you need there. So Lakebase has been like a pretty like a solid bet for the last year. But in terms of the next year, I think it's probably going to be Agentbricks. This has been dramatically simplified since we originally bought it out. I think, candidly, it was way more complicated than it needed to be. It really needed to have a lot of expertise, and now it's a lot simpler to be able to use these types of things. That we've got, I can give you a walkthrough, but we've got some things where it's very much like, okay, then, well, you put your documents in this S3 bucket, you click, 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 you set it to run, and then off it goes. Whereas previously, you would have had to play around with kind of like temperature and different models that you wanted and all the testing strategies and yada, yada, yada. You don't really need to do that anymore. But then we also have the ability to do these things within your code as well. So they're just kind of like a one-line SQL query. We'll be able to apply an AI model with some context, with some structure, with a prompt to say, hey, can you do this for me? And that is something that we're also seeing be quite successful at the moment. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
It does, yes. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I think and Lipping came on and demoed Genie last time, which was very, very impressive, I think. And that was maybe a few months ago, maybe almost a year ago. I'm very excited to see I think there's been a big explosion in AI. And I think Databricks is sort of focusing on the right stuff in my opinion. So
yes, just the way I see it, there's kind of like, when we talk about AI stuff, I mentally categorize it into two different things. There is the taking your enterprise data and doing AI stuff with it. That tends to be the real big moneymaker, candidly. That's the kind of stuff that, when you go to your boss and be like, hey, I think we can save $250 million, they're going to be really happy with you. But on the other side is the productivity tools. So what is going to make you a better developer? What is going to help you be, a lot faster in the work that you're doing? What is going to make you be more efficient? And there's kind of like the two sides of it. And I think, candidly, not many people have kind of cracked the taking your enterprise data and doing the interesting things with it. Everyone has seen those examples of like awful, I'm not going to name any names, those awful tools where it's like, hey, can you help me do a thing? And it's just completely useless. They have a terrible bad rep, and quite rightly sometimes. But the Databricks ones, again, I can show you. We've got a lot going on in there to help people be more effective with what it is that they're doing.
Yeah, I would say with a lot of AI features, you'll see, I think in my opinion, you'll see a lot of features come out, which is to sell a product. And then you'll see features come out, which is very useful to people and really helps. And I think you nailed it with those productivity kind of points. Yep. I think that is a really interesting. A lot of people here are developers as well. So I think that's what people want.
Yeah. So if you are a developer, sorry, if you've never seen Databricks before, this is what it looks like. Genie has now had a bit of expansion since that diagram was created. Curse of Databricks, any diagram you see is probably out of date by the time you want to use it. And so it's not just kind of like a chat window on the side. So here are the settings that we have for it. And not only do we have kind of the context that you can provide for a specific user in terms of the way that you want to code, you can also do workspace things as well. So if you've got a particular way that you as an organization want to develop code, what are the standards that you've got? This is something that you can add. Again, you can do skills and also workspace skills as well. And you can also do MCP servers as well. So we're very keen for you to be able to have kind of external ones or custom ones that you can set up so that you can make those connections to other tools, even if it's something like, I don't know, Jira, like, hey, what are the tickets I've got to work on today? Right, here are the things that you need to work on. Here's the link to the code base. Here's, the GitHub integration, all of that kind of stuff, and have that within here. So we definitely do want to see it more of a, sorry, before we came on, everyone, we were talking about Cursor. I'm a big fan of Cursor, but like how we want that kind of effect to be able to connect to loads of other things as well to help you be more effective at what it is that you're doing, not just, here's some syntax of how you do a thing. And I'm sure some more things are going to come up as well. But yeah, sorry. Yeah. So that's very quickly some of it.
And just to quickly mirror what I think what you and Steve were both saying is with any of these platforms or products that are coming out, like it has to service two things for it to be like useful. It either needs to save time or save money. Otherwise, its purpose is probably to sell a product.
Yeah, absolutely. And so these assistants are free, by the way, which is quite nice. So there's no kind of like a kind of token usage associated with it as well. And there's a couple of other things that Databricks does as well to lessen the load on the amount that you're going to pay for tokens too, so you can have a better experience in Databricks.
Yeah, exactly.
All right then. So if you've never seen Databricks before, here it is. On the left-hand side, I've got a whole bunch of tools. I'm not going to go through them all one by one, but maybe one of the things to talk through is kind of the categories. So this is our catalog up here, and this is ultimately our map of everything that I've got in my workspace. So it's not just kind of like a 3-level namespace of, all of the data that I've got. It is also a way to categorize, again, not just tables, but also the documents that I might have in here, so anything non-structured. But also, if I go to one of these things here, I've got a streaming table here. It is the ability to have a look at your data, also kind of view bits and pieces so that you know whether it's the right thing that you should be using. But you also get all the metadata associated with it. Permissions, policies, blah, blah, blah. Lineage for me is probably the most exciting one, so that you can see the connections between all of your data and where it's going all over the place. And if you don't like a table, you can get a nice visualization of where is all of your data, where is it going to, how did it get there, blah, 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 blah. And because this is all available in the UI, what's really nice is it's also all available programmatically as well. So if you're looking at this and you're like, hey, I want to find out what are the most useful pipelines, it's great for cost attribution. If you're like, hey, I can see that this one is costing me more, 20% more than everything else that I've got combined, what's going on here. But it also reduces that kind of the kind of structures. If you feel like you're working in a very siloed kind of way, this really helps to break that down so you understand where these things come from. I remember once upon a time I worked at a bank and I wanted to find what was the source of this data? Like, it was quite important to the model that I was building, and it took them 2 weeks every time I had a question to get back to me with like, where did this data come from? One of the great things about this as well is that it is all automatic. Like, I didn't set any of this up. I'm lazy. I'm not going to set this up. This is all programmatically done, and this is all kept up to date for you. So again, no need to, remember to log a thing in a particular place. It just happens. This is, sorry, we started talking about catalogs, didn't we? So this is kind of the 3-level namespace that we've got here as well. We do have a few clever things that are in here as well. If you share data, this is also available within the catalog as well. And this is also how you connect to other sources as well. So if you wanted to connect to, I don't know, like a SQL server somewhere and do kind of point queries to return that, again, that can all be managed within Unity catalog, and you can see where are the connections. You can govern them, who's got access, who's been doing what, and again, that all gets logged for you. So yeah, really powerful piece of kit. Super boring icon, not a particularly interesting name, but it's one of the most powerful things about Databricks. And then on the left-hand side, we have a SQL category. And so we've got a SQL editor. And if you're used to writing kind of queries like this and doing kind of like very standard kind of like SQL editors, this is something that you have available to you as well. Again, we do have dashboards. Maybe I'll go through that. Actually, let's go through dashboards. So I was going to make one for us together. And then we've got Genie, the ability to kind of do with plain English. And again, this is very much kind of like your end user kind of way of thinking about things. One of the things I should maybe touch on is how the billing model works for Databricks. And it's all around the compute that you use. So this is the amount of data that you're processing, how well you're going to do it, how efficiently you're doing it, and what are the ways that you choose to use it. So back in the olden days, when we're doing very kind of like Spark heavy workloads, you would have a cluster. This is a standard set of VMs that are provided by your cloud provider. Again, you can use Azure, AWS, or GCP for this, and technically SAP, but there's a bit of an asterisk there. And this is kind of like your standard cluster. And one of the great things about it is it's got like a bajillion different settings that you can set. And this is great if you know exactly what it is that you need to do. But if you're just trying to write a few SQL queries, this is absolute overkill. And this is where the kind of the idea of a SQL warehouse came in. So this is just like a bit of compute that you can run your SQL queries against. If you're doing other bits and pieces as well, like dashboarding, and you want that to connect to live data, this is how you're going to connect through to it. And we do have some very clever things in terms of like vector databases, but I feel like that's a little bit more for another time. In terms of data engineering, this is where we get into the orchestration side of it as well, not just jobs and workflows and that kind of thing, but also Spark declarative pipelines. And then we've got like a whole suite of AI and ML things, which again, I think maybe put a pin in for now. If we get some questions in the chat, I might go into it. But yeah, there's quite a lot here. So I do have a little example of some pipelines that are going on here. I'm going to ask you a real curveball of a question. Do you know what a ghost kitchen is, or a dark kitchen?
Oh, we have ghost kitchens all over the U.S. Where they, there's no physical store, and they're basically just a pop-up to do delivery for DoorDash and other stuff.
Yeah, so pretty much they are a kitchen to cook your menu items, to have them delivered. That's not like a restaurant because there's no seating associated with it. Basically what I have here is I have the makings of a ghost kitchen, kind of the data that goes on in the background, because there's loads of data that happens here. Not only is it all the items that you're cooking and kind of like what's going through in terms of your produce and your inventory, but also the drivers and what their pickup is and what the customer feedback is and all these other kinds of things. And so what I have here is I have a streaming table. And so this is all of my data that is being created. And what I have, actually, sorry, is this, maybe I should zoom in a little bit. And this is all real-time data that I've been using here. And so what we're doing here is we're doing some ETL to be able to process this data and then create this kind of like real-time data about our kitchen and what's going on here. So let's have a look at my source code. So if I go into here, I have the transformations that are being created. And we can see here, it kind of sort of looks like Spark. And yes, it is underneath the hood. But the idea is here, this is using something called Spark declarative pipelines. And the idea is you just kind of say what you want it to do. You don't really have to worry about a lot of the optimization underneath like you would with kind of classic Spark. And so you are just able to specify kind of like what is the details that you need to do. This is written in Python. You can do it in SQL as well. And this is what is going on in the background to be able to create that this diagram, this DAG for us. And oops, let's go back to so to here. And so with that is what is determining what all of these things are as well. So this is all the data that I am going and creating. And I can also then go have a look at this in my catalog as well. So let's have a look at, I don't know, sales daily that I've got. Sorry, is this a UI that you've seen before? I appreciate this is also quite new as well.
No, this is the first time for me. I'm just really like enjoying some of the layouts and designs. Like I'm all into aesthetics, so I'm just like you even nitpicking a little bit, or just looking at like the icons and other designs. It reminds me actually a bit of like SQL BI and like the DAX Studio and others, that the very like soft edges and a lot of just like it's like a friendly design is the best way I can think about it.
Yeah, so if I go into edit this, let's see what it comes up with. Oh, that's going to take me here. So one of the things that we are working on at the moment, so this is very much like a code-driven approach at the moment. But one of the things we are working on is called Lakeflow Designer, and this is the ability to, if you're not really that much of a kind of like hardcore coding person, it is a kind of low-code, no-code kind of tool. Obviously, because it's in Databricks, we love code. So the no-code version instantly makes all of the code for you. And then it's also accessible for you to be able to do. But that is in development at the moment. I don't have this enabled on this particular workspace at the moment. If I've ever preview turns on, it gets very messy very quickly. So yeah, I mean, in terms of, again, you have all the kind of like serious development tools is what I'd call here. I mean, yes, you do have this nice tag, but you also have all of the runs that you've ever previously wanted to run. I do technically have this in a batch mode, but I can quite easily switch it to real time. I don't, because otherwise I'll forget about it. And 3 a.m, I'll remember that it's still going on. But again, you get all of the details in terms of the performance as well. So if you really care about like the detail about what is going on, query profile is not available. Hang on, there we go. So, this is a refresh streaming table. And if you are one of those people who's like, oh, I really want to be able to go into the detail about what is happening here and debug all this stuff, it's not obfuscated away from you. And that's something that I really like about Databricks, is that, yes, it can be easier to get started, but then by the time when it's crunch time, you really can go down into the detail to be like, hey, why is this thing not really working so well? Like, what is going on here? And I can see here that actually no data was loaded. This is what's been going on. And so maybe that's my starting point to say, hey, why is my data not updated for this particular thing? So you do get a huge amount of detail with it as well.
For the total duration, what's the bar breakdown in the total duration if you scroll down?
Yes. If I have a look at the event log, are you going to? No, you are not going to give me a nice breakdown. So I think so. Sorry, we've also got. There we go. Waiting for resources, cool. Okay. So 12 seconds, initializing, and then the actual running was 19 seconds for this particular thing. And again, it's something else if you've been used to kind of classic Spark for a very long time. 12 seconds waiting for resources is way quicker than it used to be, of kind of like 5 to 10 minutes. Every once in a while, a feature comes out and it's not available with serverless or with like a warehouse. You have to use a traditional cluster. Oh my goodness, I'm so impatient all of a sudden. 5 minutes to wait for a cluster. This is outrageous. One of the things I should say about serverless is it's not just managed Spark. There are a lot of optimizations that go on underneath that you wouldn't necessarily get with the open source version of Spark. Not only do we have things like Photon, there is a new secret one that's being worked on at the moment, but there's a bunch of other optimizations, which we don't really talk about because it's quite boring to release a blog of like, here's 37 new things we optimized, and no one really cares because it's quite niche. But we do pride ourselves on the same workload year over year. If it's exactly the same workload, it does reduce by a huge amount of time, even though you didn't have to do anything to optimize it. So I think 72% year over year was last year's stat for some particular workloads. But we've even had some instances where we put out an update. Again, it's hidden in some release notes somewhere, kind of like at the bottom. But we've had customers raise a support ticket with us to be like, hey, this used to take an hour and now it only takes 5 minutes. Like, there's a bug, something's going horribly wrong. It's like, oh no, actually you're benefiting from some like niche optimized join that you didn't know you needed. And now things are a lot easier and a lot quicker. So that is something that we really do pride ourselves on. And that's the kind of serverless element to it as well, which you don't necessarily get. You do get some with the clusters and like the later runtimes, but with serverless, it's also optimized for smaller, more concurrent types of workloads as well. So if you've got 100 people hammering one, warehouse, that's going to be a lot more effective than everyone going to the same cluster and you're getting stuck at the same driver.
Absolutely, agreed.
I do like the anecdote. I hear this whenever you make something so much better, you get a lot of people worried because they're wondering why it's so much better. Definitely a good problem to have, but I imagine that's very true.
So one thing that I wanted to do, let's have a look at our daily sales, and I wanted us to have a look at this within our catalog, and clicking on this is not doing what I thought it was going to do. Never mind. Here we go. View and catalog. This is what I wanted to do. So this is very similar to what we had earlier in terms of just being able to see all of our data. And so we've got our item sales per day. And so here, this is how I could connect into a dashboard or into a Genie space. So I could either, use Power BI, or I could use Tableau. But one of the things that you can do is also open it in a Genie space and say things like, tell me about this data and some stats over time. Actually, it's already come up with a few suggestions, actually.
Nice.
Actually, should we just go for one of these? Right. What is the monthly sum of the blah, blah, blah? And what it's doing here is it's going through and looking at our data to inspect it and kind of do that multi-step reasoning from an agent to be able to then answer these questions. So we've got some preliminary tables, but it's probably just going through and checking the data so that it knows that it's right. And again, if you still want to check it even more, you also have the code element of it as well, so you can see what is happening here. We get a nice little visualization for us as well. So if I wanted to change this, I can add on more bits and pieces as well. And if I really like this, I can start turning this into a Genie space as well. And I can start adding things like instructions to say, this is what this acronym means. Or when I talk about quarter, I don't actually mean January, February, March. I mean February, March, April, because we've got a slightly funny reporting here. And this is what I meant earlier when I said the ability for people to like better self-serve with the data that they've got. And so what we have here, you can just give this Genie space. We do have, maybe actually I should show you. So we have Databricks 1, and this is very much the business-focused version of Databricks. Sorry, I've just swapped over there. And what I can do is I can either search for particular dashboards or Genie spaces. So I have a Genie space that's for some reason about boba sales. I'm not really sure why. But
because boba's delicious, obviously.
Oh my God, like our teams, engineering teams run on boba. You'd think it would be coffee, but no.
You can get caffeine coffee. You can get coffee boba.
You can, but it's got to the point now where like whenever there's a hackathon, they've really had to talk people out of like, how do we automate boba delivery so that we always get the right amount, so there's none left over at the end of the day.
It's really funny. Ooh, trick on this is have a weighted a cup holder that has a scale, weighted scale on it, and then like at whatever it notices a certain drop in weight, it auto orders for you based off of like observed like drink rates.
Okay, could you not give them ideas? I'd be really grateful.
Yeah.
And so sorry, this is my so you can see kind of the multi-step process that's going on here. About what are we even doing here? And again, you could see how this would be really useful for people who are not code writers but still want to know things about their data. And the example that I gave was kind of a little bit farcical in that it's like, here's one data set. What you can do is have things that are multiple data sets that are joining over time in different ways with different keys. That is something that you can do here. And I think this is possibly going through in a bit more detail as well. But we do have not just kind of our chat mode where you're asking questions and it's returning SQL. We have the agent mode as well, which is actually quite advanced to be able to analyze the data. So not just about can you give me top 10 data over time kind of visualization points, but also go through and analyze these things. I'm going to give you a funny story. So we have this feature enabled for everything internally, and our marketing data goes into a particular workspace in Databricks, and they were like looking for examples to demo and blah, blah, blah. We had this agent, it was like looking at all the sales, like the marketing data, and someone was just making a demo, and it came back with a bunch of things that maybe we should be trying because we've missed them.
Nice.
So this is something that has been used internally quite effectively. Right, this is still thinking. There we go. So we've got some visualizations, some insights here of what is going on. It's basically saying, can you analyze this data for me? It's giving me some nice breakdowns of various things that I've asked for, various visualizations. We've all seen visualizations before, but as a starting point, this is quite nice to be able to say, hey, what's going on with this data? And again, is this going to replace one analyst building that end of year report? No. But if you have some data and you're like, hey, what's going on with this data? If you had something that was either curated or as you as an analyst wanted to be like, hey, do I think this is the right kind of data? This is a quick way as a jumping off point to then do more analytics and more analysis about this too. So yeah, it can get quite smart, it can get quite advanced in these things. For these things as well. And they also look quite nice as well. This is not what I wanted to show. I actually wanted to show something differently. But before I go into
Quick question.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So on the instructions, essentially like these here are, is that at the parent level, or is that kind of for this specifically for this conversation thread where you're giving it custom ones?
Yeah, so there's something called a Genie space, which is basically a kind of a place to ask questions about a particular topic. So this one is set up for October.
Okay.
And so this has got the example of, make sure that it's nice and tidy. And that's kind of like a general response instruction. But then we also have joins as well. So for the data that I've got in here, I can specify, I can specify how I want to join these things on what the conditions are, and specify things like this. I can just define it. And again, if I'm a SQL person, I can use it like that as well. So that's yeah. You've also got some common SQL expressions as well. So if you want to add in like common filters that people might use. So let's say, I don't know whether it's geography. Oh, I've got a great example. At Databricks, we have, sales geographies, and I can never understand what on earth all of these things are like. So you probably want to define that upfront to be like, oh, when we talk about North Europe, these are the stores that we mean. Or when we talk about like a particular region, this is how we break that demographic down as well. And then also SQL queries and functions as well. So again, if you want to give it a bit of a starting point to say, hey, people are going to ask this a lot, but you can kind of play around with it, you can predefine some of those SQL queries up front as well. So yeah, quite advanced. There's a lot of configuration that you can do. I think the maximum tables has been updated. I think it was about 25. It's now more. But one of the things that we are trying to do with it is kind of a little bit arbitrary. Something that we're trying to do is to kind of, if something is nice and curated, we don't want to detract from that as well. But we do want people to be able to ask questions kind of wider generally of their data, not just be confined to what is only within a particular Genie space. And something that we were talking about before we came on air today is you can get this on your mobile now. So there's a Databricks One app. And so this version of the product is available on your phone. And so you can ask questions. So if you've got one of those execs, we all have them, where you spend ages making a beautiful dashboard. And they're like, yeah, that's great, but I want to be able to know the blah, blah, blah about my data. It's like, okay, then, well, when you get to 8 in the morning for the start of your commute, you can sit there on the train kind of like asking questions about your data. And instead of the meeting being like, oh, why isn't it not broken down by this particular thing? And you've got to go back and do it all over again. They can have those answers for that particular meeting. So sorry, I got very distracted here. Let's
no worries.
To what was it that I wanted? It was this one, wasn't it? And here. And I think what I want to do for this, I'm going to go ahead and open it in a dashboard. What it is going to do, originally it's come up with a few bits and pieces, and this is very embarrassing because what I wanted to do was ask it. Oh, everything okay?
Yeah, I realized whenever you have time, I have a question about from the audience about Genie.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go for it.
Jake wants to know, is Genie the only space you can define a semantic layer?
No, that is a great question. One of the great things about having Unity Catalog is that you can define metric views as just like a normal asset that you would, like, whether you think about it as like a table or something like that. And I think I have one here from earlier. So this is a metric view. This is how it's come. Sorry, we're jumping all over the place with my examples here. This is some data I have on the Olympics for the topical. It was topical months ago. It's not anymore. So just let's pretend it's a topical thing now. And so this is something that has been defined so that any tool within Databricks can use it. Actually, and outside of it as well. We've got a host of integrations. I think Power BI has just come out, but if you're using something like Sigma, I think Hex has got this. ThoughtSpot. Ooh, you're really testing me now. There's about 10 integrations at the moment where you've got these metrics.
And a few others, yeah.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Yep. Sorry, do you want to do the demo and I'll say
At least from the reporting perspective, there's a few terms I can throw out because I have to keep track of those because I'm always like curious what other reporting platforms are doing, right?
Yeah, so in terms of how these are defined, so you can do it within YAML. So this is how mine is defined, is in YAML, but you can also do it with the UI as well. So I've got 6 measures and 4 dimensions here. And if I want, I can add in a few more bits and pieces. And the great thing about this, so once upon a time, I thought not particularly highly of a semantic layer because in my head it was like that just sounds like you don't really have very well curated data and your users don't really know what you're doing. But actually with this kind of rise of plain English questions that are coming in, and again they might be coming from users, but what we're increasingly seeing more and more and more is these Genie spaces are being part of an agentic workflow. So not only is it it is a human asking things in the kind of squishy human language that it uses, but also agents are like spitting out bizarro things, and that's got to try and be interpreted as well.
And careful of what you say on semantic layers here, because this is a very friendly semantic layer.
I was a big critic for a long time. I'm converted. Do I get points for that?
Excellent. You do. You're allowed to stay on the stream.
First ever person kicked off stream. Right.
I have just posted a link as well. So our good friends Tabular Editor, who have been on quite a lot also, and I know we have a big Power BI crowd here, have a great integration with a semantic bridge built by Greg, a really good friend Greg over at Tabular Editor as well. So those, looking at Power BI, and I know a lot of audience does, definitely check that one out because it's fantastic.
Yeah, and so some of the nice things about this is you can go in, you can define these, but you can also be like quite advanced in the way that you define them as well. And especially if you've got something that's a little bit like like an agent is unlikely to get because it's quite a nuanced query. This is a nice way of having to do it, but without having to go through kind of like every single little thing of like, okay, technically a monthly rolling thing means this, and then weekly is like this, and then having to do it all manually. You can do this as a metric view. And again, this is something within Unity Catalog. I don't have any lineage because this is an old demo that I don't use anymore. But again, you get all the permissions and details about that as well. And all of this is logged into system tables that you can get the history of that as well. Can I? And then certification. Maybe I should put deprecated on here. And so this is another way that you can assess and say whether this is like the right metric to use. This is something we use internally in Databricks a huge amount. When someone says something like how much this account been using, there's about 20 different ways that you can define what like an account usage is. It gets really messy really quickly. And so we have a handful of ways that you can define usage within the company, depending on who you are, but it stops this kind of proliferation of, everyone having their own particular definition to be like, oh, well, technically February has only 20. Like, I don't care. Like, I just want it to be consistent across the company.
So I do love the depreciation aspect. That labeling is not something we actually have like in Fabric. And I literally just went through a conversation with a client where they have like a model that is giant and bloated. They need to hack off 40% of it, but like there's 600 things connected to it. So like, all right, we're going to hit the top 100 highest uses. We're going to build a V2, and we're going to have a depreciation plan, basically, where you're going to roll out, send some notifications, tell people to redirect. But like, there's no flag as depreciated. Like the best you could do is maybe add rename the title of it or do something else. But the fact that there's an actual label. Yeah, like honestly, literally, yeah. Because like we have like flags for certified master data management, but like an actual this might be going away type flag, and it's old or needed but no longer used. I think is really, really cool to have, because a lot of migrations need that staggered, like, we're going to keep it with a new label. We're going to announce certain things, give people opportunity, and then we're going to delete it. So that is, I'm appreciative of that.
Yeah, and this pops up in other parts of the platform as well. So if I start developing with this now, a little warning will pop up in the editor to be like, hey, you're trying to develop on a deprecated feature. So
that's nice.
Yeah, that is pretty sweet. And again, I'm well aware that this view is quite empty and not going to validate my point. But this lineage graph here, to your point of like, hey, who's using this? And I've got a year's worth of history here. That might make this 19. No, that's not right. I think this is for the entire workspace. It's not just for my little metric view. But yeah, you can get all the lineage of like who are the ones who are dependent on this again, so you can programmatically go through and be like, okay, well, we polled the business and 20 people told us that they were using it, but then we go into lineage and we can see who is using it for realsies, and we can see it's 100 people. Let's try and find the owners of this particular thing. And again, what's nice, you've got like you've got all the details here about like who is the owner of this particular thing. You also get all the creators as well. And again, in the back end, you get all of this programmatically. So if you just wanted to run a quick report, you can do that. So that is pretty sweet. Now that I've insulted semantic layers, do we have any more questions about them?
Just one comment where just Doddle was just mentioning YAML reminds him of his days on Ruby on Rails days.
Yeah, so I think it's also like a very kind of like ML model kind of way of defining requirements and things like that, which is why it's been brought over. I'm not going to lie, my head works much better with something visual like this. I don't know what it is about YAML. Oh, that's quite nice. Having it like this for my brain is a lot better. And then I look at it in YAML and I'm like, I don't understand this. And again, this is like 80 lines long. Like, I don't understand this. My brain doesn't see it. So I mean,
it's the same with like it's like unstructured notes in a Word doc versus Trello. Like the same information is needed either, but they're right. Like there's a structure. I'm with you on it. I'm similar. Like I need things visually organized. If you just give me a verbal dump of everything into like unstructured text, like I cannot parse that. I need structure. I need formatting.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to have another go at this. Why has this not done what I thought it was going to do? Sorry. Back to our visualizations. Dashboards. Create dashboard. No, I don't think this is going to do what I wanted it to do. Sort of metro view. No, this is not going to do what I wanted it to do at all. How embarrassing. Maybe I haven't turned this feature on yet. So we do have, oh, goodness sake. Right, come here. Right, you've all seen a dashboard before. I am not going to kind of belabor this point. But what I am going to say is, was it Customer's Kitchen? Link flow, right. Select star from, what was our data set we had? One of the nice things about this is that this is not taking another copy of that data. So again, we don't have this idea of like, oh, well, we have our data in a SQL server, something or other, but then to make a dashboard, we've got to take it out of there and we've got to put it somewhere else. There's none of that. It all stays in exactly the same place. And even if you are doing something like putting Power BI on top of that, that is exactly the same. It is still true. That means you're going to get the freshest version of your data. It means there's none of this silly waiting overnight for something to refresh, or it doesn't happen. So you've got to message the team, yada, yada, yada. It is just going to be able to query the latest version of your data. And this I've got here, this is like updating every 3 minutes. And so that means that this is always going to be available for us to be able to use. Let's suggest a name for me, please. Fine.
Pumpernickel.
Sorry, I asked Databricks and it came up with gold brand daily sales overview data set. And I'm really sorry. I think it's more technically accurate, but less creative. I will give you that. Right. And if you have like a local CSV, you can just like upload a file if you want to be able to kind of drop that in there, if you need like a mapping file or something. And again, you can do something where you've got like a really creative thing within SQL. You know, I've got select star from, but you might want to go a lot more creative with it. You might want to have some joins and things like that. If you have something that is really complicated, obviously you want to be able to kind of cache that up, do some performance things to it. So you can go ahead and turn this into a materialized view, not the same as a metric view, a materialized view. So there is something that is run off that live data, but periodically, so that when you're loading it, you're only loading the kind of incremental. So I'll give you an example. Let's say we had a very complicated join. I know this data updates every 3 minutes. So I set my materialized view to update every minute. But maybe there's that little bit of 30 seconds where some new data has come in, but I want to make sure that that's in my dashboard. Now, because it's a materialized view, what it's going to do is that's going to be ready to go. And then there's some very fancy compute that goes on. It's called Enzyme. And it is going to process that last 30 seconds on top of that materialized view. But it means that you're going to get that so much faster, especially if it's a complex join. So yeah, again, a lot of clever underneath performance things that are going on here as well. Again, if I want to add a custom calculation, I can do that as well. And of course, you can start parameterizing things as well if you want something like that. So that's in terms of the sources. Here's my page that I have here. And if I want, I can have some global filters and things like that. Now, I'm not going to sit here and like draw a dashboard for you because you kind of know what that is. But of course, we have the kind of classic AI tools as well. So if you want to be able to you know, show, let's see what this comes up with. If I just click on a recommended thing, we'll see what it comes up with. One of the features that I was hoping to be able to show you, which I did not turn on, there is an AI button that you can just click and it will kind of do a first pass for pretty much as you wanted anyway. What happens if I say, can you make 5 more visualizations for me? It might, spelling. It might turn around and say no. All right, so thank you very much. You've made me a lovely chart. You all know what charts look like. Now, is this going to be on par with literally everything that you can do in Power BI? No, that product is like 10 years old. No, it's not. It's like 15 years old. It's a very old product. And they've obviously had huge amounts of development on that. So I'm not going to go ahead and say, yeah, chuck Power BI in the bin. Absolutely not. But what I am going to say is if you have something where you want it to be closer to the data, or you have something where you don't need to have it as, you know, with very specific things on here, then this is a good candidate in terms of, you know, there's no paying for seats or anything like that. So if you're the kind of person who makes one dashboard a month, this is probably the cheaper option to be able to do it. You get all of the things in terms of the kind of governance. You are able to send it to places. You can embed it with various different tools. What else do you get with it that's quite nice? Again, you can use all those metric views. You could do that with Power BI anyway. But yeah, so there's a lot that's going on with this, and which is quite nice too. Is this? Oh, there we go. I asked it to make 5 more things, and it's gone ahead and done it. Can I close you? Let's close you. So yeah, again, nice starting point. Is this going to be 100% exactly what you want? No. But but again, is a good starting point. Maybe something that we should talk about is the availability of things that you can do. So in terms of your types, let's say I want to add something else. These are things that you are probably used to seeing as well. I think we saw a Sankey earlier, which is probably one of the more advanced ones. Actually, let's talk about this forecast one. This one is actually pretty sweet. This is the ability to create your line graph, and then it will go ahead and make a forecast for you, and it's pretty accurate. Maybe if I say, what do we want? Right, let's have our day, and then original, I don't know, item sold. And then is this going to do it properly? Maybe. Sorry, this is brand new. I've only seen it once somewhere else. Hang on. Can you make me a line forecast for items sold? Is this the state we're in now? The Databricks alleged expert doesn't know. He just sits on a stream asking the AI for it to do it.
Whilst that's thinking, we do have a question from the audience.
Yeah,
from Jake.
Go for it.
He wants to know if the user credentials get passed through. So if there's any sort of array level security, object level security, RBAC.
Absolutely. So great question. And the answer is you can choose. So if you have a scenario where you've got different teams using different, like from different regions or whatever, then yes, you can do. And this is part of it being published. So if I go ahead and I try to publish this, I've got the option, and I can say either I want to share basically as I see it, and so everyone views what I make, or I could have it as the individual permission. So let's say I make something for the UK, but you guys want something that's just for the US. Because I've got all of the groups in here that I can sync, I can then say, actually, only these people can have access to that as well. So yes, you do get the user credentials, and you can do that via Power BI as well. So it's not just a Databricks dashboard thing, it's anything like that. So there we go. Turns out I got it wrong and I made it a bar chart, and I got told off by the agent. But yeah, we also have this in here. And one of the things that's really nice is it's used this AI feature called AI Forecast to be able to go ahead and create it. And again, it's told me what is the query that it's using to create this as well. So now I can go and inspect it. When it loads, maybe it's got performance anxiety. Failed to load query. What are you doing? Right, let's go back to my dashboard. And if I view visualization query, there we go. Again, I get access to all of the back-end stuff as well about how is it going and making this particular forecast. And I can see here, this is the AI forecast that is being created. And so I've got the horizon on there, and I can play around with this manually if I wanted, because it's all written in SQL. Any changes to the SQL that I want to make, I can have that and then have that reflected within the visualization as well. And if you wanted to use this and you really hate this visualization thing that I'm showing you, you can just take this query and you can have this as something that is running in the background. You could also then take that and put that in Power BI as well. All right, how are we doing for time, by the way?
We got a little bit. Yeah, we got some buffer time. There you go. Yeah.
Did you have another question come up here?
Yeah, let's do this, and then I'll have one. Yeah, perfect. Okay.
Yeah. He asks if we can use a managed identity in the dashboard rather than individual users.
I assume that means kind of things like groups. So
I think his point was in case someone leaves, right? What would happen? Is this kind of owned?
Yeah. Sorry. So yeah, if you're Azure, then yes, it's the managed identity from Microsoft. What is it called? My brain is completely gone.
Not Active
on.
Directory. The Entra.
Yeah, so yeah, Enter ID. You can use it with Okta. That's what we use at Databricks. There's a few others as well that you can use with it as well. So yeah, there is managed identity as well, so that if someone, if someone leaves that shouldn't have access to it, then you can absolutely do it like that as well. Yeah, in case the dev leaves. Yes, that is exactly correct. Yes, you do have managed identity. And depending on whether you go down the Azure route or AWS and GCP, slightly determines which options you get. But yes, that is definitely doable.
Now, a question as well, I think is a good spot to wrap up on not only native report capabilities, but some of the more like web app type designs and other things that you've added recently, and like the idea towards like more HTML type stuff. If you have any thoughts on that or want to speak to that, as like I think the shift is starting to move towards those programmatic and like open source type reporting layers.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is we do have the ability to put apps on top of things as well. So again, spanning my maybe 3 different visualizations, sorry, 3 different demos that I've got here. I have an app that's about boba bricks, and it's a Streamlit app that I've got here. It's a little chatbot that I've got now. It doesn't necessarily have to be this. This is something that was meant to be for something a bit more agentic. And this is kind of chaining together bits and pieces. So it's not just a Genie space, but it's also got a vector search in the background and an MCP server as well. And so this is querying data, but the way that it's doing that is with something called Lakebase. And this is my Bobabricks Lakebase instance that I've got. And so this is the ability for you to be able to put data into, this has not quite worked as well as I wanted it to. Add a catalog. Right, let's add in. No, okay, fine. And so this is the ability for you to use essentially something similar to Postgres, to be able to serve that data and have a kind of real-time, snappy responses for this as well. So that's what this is for. And so again, you get the kind of like really quick response times in what is happening here. One of the great things about this is in kind of classic Databricks style, it is separated storage and compute. So if it's not on, you don't have to pay for it, which is really, really nice. Like the storage stays and that stays persisted, but it's the compute on top of it. And that's the expensive bit, candidly. That's the stuff that you can turn off and on. So if you've got a business app where people are going to be in from, I don't know, like 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. maximum, you can turn it off for the weekend, which is like Easter. Why'd you pay for 4 days of usage if like no one's going to be at work? And so that is something that is available to you as well. Someone was asking, I think about kind of service principals. Yeah, that's possible as well. And so you also have auto scaling for it as well. So if you're just doing a little bit of like development work, you don't necessarily have to choose straight away how big you want a particular thing. You can pick kind of your capacity units, but you can also have it scale as well. One other thing that's amazing about this is you can also do kind of point in time restores. You can do branching from it. So you can say, actually, I have an app, it works really well, but I do want to deploy a new feature. What you can then do is clone the entire thing, because again, the data stays the same. You can clone the compute and you can do all your testing on that cloned version, knowing that it's not going to mess up what you've got in your Postgres for live, and have that separated, which is amazing. And then one final magic trick that I'm going to pull out for this is the ability to then sync that data back. There's a lot of development cycles that have been wasted on people not just putting data into Postgres, but then being like, oh well, my ghost kitchen example, I had to refund this number of people, or like someone gave me a thumbs down on this instance, or something happened and now I need that data to come back in so that I can do my analysis on it, so that I can put it into a dashboard for that Monday reporting meeting. And that is something that is possible with this here as well. Advanced settings too. Yeah, I don't know. And so this is how you can have an app. In terms of the apps that you can make, it's quite flexible. So I can can tell I'm a data engineer. I'm really struggling at some of these icons. But yes, so yeah, we've got like Flask, Gradio, like a Shiny app as well. So if you're part of our ecosystem, that's quite nice and streamlit. One thing that I also will say about this is a really nice way to not have shadow IT within an organization. I don't know about you, but anytime I see an R Shiny dashboard, like the kind of how happy IT are with that as a solution normally varies from a bit uncomfortable to very, very unhappy. And having it within Databricks where it has got kind of the identity providers, where it has got something in terms of kind of the cost monitoring that goes on, this is all available for you. And again, if you want to get started, let's start, with some agents and bits and pieces like that. Or if you do want to build a dashboard, but you want something that's a lot snappier because it's going out, it's not really for an analytics purpose, it's for something else maybe. Or if you're just doing, database type stuff.
So these are all made by organizations, I'm assuming, right? Like essentially, like you can submit, get a review, security pass, and pops in. Yep. Yeah.
So it's normally kind of workflow for people who are not data people. So let's say you've got like IT requests of something that's going on. Mm-hmm. In our fictitious example of a ghost kitchen, this is how we'd have like a refund agent, getting all the information, being like, customer is unhappy, food was this late, likelihood that it was cold and an unpleasant experience, how much did they pay for it, and then the chat with the user. And the agent can say, yes, this should be refunded. No, it shouldn't. And then that data can kind of go off and go back out into the world to then be analyzed and go to the correct system, but also then be analyzed as well. And again, I'm trying to think of other examples that we've got internally. We've got really like cute little things internally. So one of the hard things about Databricks is we've got, I don't know, last time I checked 14,000 customers, and every day someone in sales is like, hey, does anyone have a nice example of a customer who works in this industry, did this kind of thing, blah, 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 XYZ, all on a Tuesday, and then used to kind of like scream into Slack and see if anyone was respond. We don't do that anymore. Someone's built a little app where you can say, hey, these are the things that I'm looking for. It'll go and scrape all of our internal Slack, all of our public channels that we have about like YouTube and blogs and things like that, all of our Google Drive, and it will come back with a match to be like, hey, someone talked about this, but it was 2 years ago, and like this account owner had this thing, but you can't talk about this publicly. All of these different things as just like a nice little thing internally to be able to like navigate our data from all over the place.
Yep. I think as more of these things start to surface over the next like 12 to 24 months, especially with like agentic development, I see lots of opportunity for a lot of these types of apps where people need somewhat turnkey if they don't have their own internal developers and want to just have things running on top of the platform. Like myself included, we're building out a few things, so I very much see opportunity to as I build out some of the D3 stuff that I'm working on for visualizations, even having some submissions in here for the dashboard layering and everything.
Yeah. So there's a lot that we can do with it, which is quite exciting. Again, this is the kind of newer side of it. So there are lots of other things that kind of going on in the background for this. But yeah, what we're finding is kind of continuing this idea of like, we want to break down silos, this idea of like, oh, well, yeah, sure, your data engineers and your analysts and your machine learning engineers, they can all work well together. But the moment you get outside of the data world, it's like, sorry, really difficult to do. And we don't really like that in terms of, one, it's not very good for businesses, candidly. But then also like all of your governance starts breaking down if like things don't share, a governance provider or have a different way of kind of integrating and all those kind of things. And this is a nice way to have it all in one place, to have it governed and then kind of keep an eye on it. So yeah, so that is apps, which is pretty new.
No, I'm very excited to see what comes of this stuff. I think the next 12 months, especially now that like I feel like the snowball of agentic work is like the mass population's catching on to that, not just edge developers who are the experts. I think there's going to be some really cool stuff, I think, coming out.
So maybe can I segue onto this? So this is an app that I made for again, like a demo. We had an AI day recently. And so the idea with this is I've got a little app, and it's got some things going on in the back end. So again, it's not just a Genie space, it's also an MCP server. And it's also got some documents as well that we can go ahead and scan. And I did not test any of this before I logged on, so I don't know if all the endpoints are up and running. But the idea is that it's meant to be for someone in a shop who needs to ask questions about their inventory, about kind of the documents, or maybe like food safety and order times and all of that kind of stuff. So you've got policy documents, you've also got all of your sales data, and then you've also got links to any other internal data as well. And I don't think this is going to work. Ooh, maybe it is. There we go. I did not warm it up beforehand. And so we've got some examples here of kind of questions that we could just ask. Now, this is not the interesting bit that's going on here. What is interesting is the kind of back end of how this was created. So these are my agents that I've got here, and this is my supervisor agent. And so what this is here is I've made an agent and I've configured it with 3 different agents this is my supervisor. It's got 3 different agents within it. So it's got my my Genie space that I've got here. It's got external MCP server, and then we've got this as well, which is extracting information from documents that I've got here. And we were talking earlier about, why do I think these things are growing so quickly? And candidly, because this used to be very code heavy, and now we can just orchestrate it with like a simple prompt and being like, here's the thing that's going on. So if I go ahead and have a look at this OpsBot underneath, I'll be able to show you the build. Come on, there we go. And I've got a bunch of documents that this is linked to. So again, these are all documents that are either stored in S3 or ADLS or whatever. They've been added to a volume so that they're a thing that's organized by Unity catalog. And I can just ask questions about them. I can add some context about like what are the instructions and how should my answers look. But if I go ahead into Unity catalog, I can see all of these documents. I can see what they look like. And again, I've got 6 documents here, so maybe this is not the most exciting. And again, I can manually upload things if I want to. But again, it's all available programmatically. So if I've got 10,000 documents and they're all updating real time, this is something that we can do within Databricks. And again, I can just have a look at I don't know, training manual. And we can have a quick look to be like, hey, what's going on with this? This is, my answers are pointing to this document. Is this the right thing that I should be using? And so this is going and doing the information extraction from that. And at Databricks, something kind of obfuscated from here is we have the ability to extract the information at a much more accurate rate and a much more cost what's the word? Not sensitive. What's the word that I'm looking for? Cost efficient. Cost effective. Yeah. It's not the cheapest on the market, but we do aim to be kind of price performant. We aim to get good value for money is what we're aiming for. Like it's a very good model in terms of scale. If you need like 100% or 90, 5 nines of accuracy, maybe it's not the thing for you because candidly, you've got to pay for that kind of stuff. But in terms of price performance, this is one of the best things on the market at the moment to be able to get that information from your documents. I don't have any examples. Okay, then. So, and that's a knowledge assistant, and that's just any kind of unstructured document that you might have. Would assume embedding vector database is more effective over time versus having raw files. So that is an excellent point. So you can have a vector database as well. And I think that is what is going on with this. So where was my compute? Here's my vector search. These are the different endpoints that I have that are available to me. So I think this one was our... is this the one that we were using? I don't think so. But what this is doing is it is embedding that into a vector database that you can then use. And you can also create your own indices as well if you've got a specific way that you want to be able to do this. So this is Pretty cool. These MAS ones are our multi-agent supervisors, and our KAs are our knowledge assistants. So back to my agent. Yeah. So the supervisor is doing basically all of the routing between all of these things that we've got here. And again, I've got this, I can just test it here before I go ahead and put it in an app, or I can just open it in a playground as well. There are lots of, I think I can add up to 20 things in here. And again, it can be a Genie space, agent endpoint. It could be a Unity catalog function as well, actually, as well as any kind of external MCP server too. And then I can give it some like routing instructions as well on to be able to kind of orchestrate all of these things together.
And speaking of like MCPs and stuff, I'm assuming you have do you have a CLI interface as well for just like direct control for any headless interactions from external tooling like Claude, Codex, etc.
Yeah, so we have AI Dev Kit solutions. There we go. So if you are
there we go.
If you're like a Claude person, a Cursor, this is a Gemini CLI. I'm not use this actually. Anti-derivative. And so this is AI Dev Kit, and what this will do is will give your coding tool the ability to interact with Databricks. Not gonna lie, I do a lot of my development like this now, but without this, I'll give you an example. I tried setting it up without AI Dev Kit and just having the Cursor MCP integration for Databricks. But the problem was I would do something like spin up a traditional cluster, which takes 5 minutes. I needed it for a very specific thing. And Cursor completely freaked out at me that it was like, oh my God, I've hit the API, I've made the create statement, and then it just kind of completely freaked out that it wasn't responding with like up and ready to go. And so it's things like that where it gives you all of the skills that you need to be able to develop with Databricks. Where do things go? Where are the APIs? Where are the documents? All of that kind of jazz is available to use. So yeah, I really, really recommend this. This has really changed the way that I develop with Databricks.
Drop the link into the chat. But yes, I mean, with a lot of the building of these things in general, just a direct connection through the CLI or API and being able to have it like, plan out a file and build the whole pipeline between, everything, I think is going to be the future for this stuff for sure.
Yeah. And if you're lazy like me, when it comes to setting it up, I don't read any of the instructions. I just sent it to Cursor. It's like, hey, Cursor, could you set this up, please? Link in, allow everything. Off it went, and it was fine. Thank you very much for posting the link in the chat. Sorry, I tried, but I haven't joined the chat, so
no worries.
Yeah, it's not that but yeah, couldn't recommend it enough. So if you are that kind of person, that's good for you as well.
So and I will say we're coming up on the hour, so
sorry.
Doug, this is good. Like we have the buffer time to go into just because we can talk about cool stuff all day. Are there any final quick demos you'd want to show, or any takeaways, or anything else to put a nice little bow on everything? Hard to pick.
It's hard to pick. I think so. Yeah, that's fine. One thing I will say is that everyone is going nuts about agents at the moment, and that's fine because they are really exciting. But what I will say is it's the kind of serious grown-up agent management that Databricks really excels at, and that is with ML Flow. And I'm hoping that this is working for me. Yeah, so within ML Flow, we have not just the observability of who said what, when, how long did it take to get ordered? How long? What was everything that went on? What is the multi-steps that happened within here? How long did all of these things take? Everything that's associated with this particular agent that I've created, so that when something goes wrong, you can go ahead and fix it. You also have this idea of judges as well. So you can have an LLM judge to say, hey, here are my basic instructions. Can you go through and be my round one of judges for these particular things? And again, you can just create a judge using AI, or you could do it manually if you really wanted to. And then something else as well, if you wanted to create a labeling session, if you wanted to send this to a human who is not a programming person, who is someone who is an expert in boba tea, you can just send them a particular review app, where it gives them the tasks of the things that they need to have a look at to see whether this is the correct response. So I can put in here my expected response, but also the facts as well. So I could say, hey, this is really wordy. Could you make it quicker? But also like, hey, you really missed this particular thing. And then this will go back into that agent to update the prompt so that it is more accurate next time round. And again, in terms of like when that updates the versions, you can then got different versions and you can change that through time. And again, here's my nulls in terms of the accuracy and things like this. So we can assess these things at scale and debug when things go wrong, but also incorporate that feedback over time. So yes, everyone loves an agent, but Databricks really has the kind of grown-up way to be able to like enterprise-friendly way to be able to assess all of these things. And then when something starts breaking kind of like 3 weeks into your experiment, you know what's happened. You can quite easily find out and you can quite easily fix it. And you can prevent that kind of agent sprawl that is going on in a lot of places because it's all going kind of all over the place. And this is a nice unified way to keep track of everything and improve the quality of it. So that is my final point. I'm very sorry, everyone who came here looking for a Power BI alternative, and I'm just here blabbing about experiments, but it is really powerful. It's also quite easy to get started as well. So do check it out. Maybe a final thought is if you're like, hey, Holly, I quite like the look of this, but I don't have Databricks in my company, or maybe I'm a contractor, databricks.com/free edition. This is a way that you can go ahead and get started with Databricks for free. There are limits on how much it is that you can use per day. So please don't expect to be able to go in and kind of train with GPUs and make your own model. That is not going to happen. But if you just want to play around so that you have a better understanding of what's going on, Databricks Free Edition is the way to get started.
I like Donald's comment, like Power BI will be taken out of my cold dead hands. I was like, I feel like 10 years ago, people were saying that about Power Pivot. Yeah, there's always opportunity for new platforms. Like I do think that app and web-based front ends will be the future. Just as a little anecdote, like I've seen too many posts, like even cheekily, like, "Oh, is Power BI?" Like I hate the posts that are hyperbolous. Like there is new technology coming out for these things, and like maybe in 5 to 7 years potentially, but like with anything, right? When a newer, better product comes out, it's a very, very, very slow migration to that. It took probably until 2019, 2020 at least, if not later, before people really stopped asking me as a shop to build Power Pivot reports. I still sometimes use Analyze in Excel for that, but like people like what's familiar. So, it's always such a slow moving change. But I do love the fact that you guys have supported those earlier on as a platform. I think allowing for that open source app-based development as the front end layer, because I do think that will be the next wave of stuff as people are catching up to that. Yeah,
I mean, we're, is Databricks a one-to-one replacement with Power BI? Absolutely not. But we do want we know it's a popular tool. It's a really, it's loved. It's, very well used. And so that's why we have all these integrations with it so that you can benefit from Power BI, benefit from all these great Databricks things and surface it through Power BI. I don't think there's very many features where we've got them for other visualization tools, including our own, that we don't have for Power BI. Now, there might be a bit of a lag because we've got to work across company to make a few integrations work together.
Yes.
But yeah, I don't really think there's a huge amount of features that we don't make available to Power BI. So a lot of the benefits that I talk about today, again, they are going to benefit you if you are a Power BI user and you just want something a bit chunkier for your back end.
Well, and I mean, I think even to your point of it's the frenemies conversation with Microsoft and Databricks. I mean, there's a reason so early on they started supporting it with Azure and other stuff. Is there is space for both ecosystems. I think it's like a Venn diagram. There is some overlap, there's some separation, but I think there will be a lot of back and forth integrations with both organizations going forward as people are going to keep their data in more and more locations that will be able to be shortcutted and connected with each other, especially I think as eventually all roads are going to lead to Delta Lake and Delta Parquet format.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%. No, this has been really informative. I certainly learned a lot myself on this stuff. So greatly appreciate you like coming on and sharing this, and looking forward to doing other more like deep dive specialized sessions in the future on like targeted products and stuff with Databricks.
Oh yeah, we've speaking of targeted products, we've got a few announcements recently on things like products that are built on top of Databricks. Sorry, I don't have a demo for this. Hang on, let's see.
Okay, yeah. I saw some movie and stuff. So
if
you have one, yeah.
I don't, but I do have this article here about basically kind of the direction that Databricks is going in. Is that we know we're great for data, we know we can process it much better, we know we can do the agentic stuff on top of it. So why don't we start doing something with it? So agentic SIEM, sorry. So the ability to do a lot of your security, IT monitoring with Databricks as your backend. And again, it's all transparent. And in terms of the direction that Databricks is going to go in, you're going to, I don't want to give too much away, but this is kind of the things that Databricks has started doing, and it wouldn't surprise me if we see more like this in future, where we are able to give you some apps on top of Databricks as well, ready for you to use. So not just, like sometimes I do feel sorry for people. It's like, yeah, like you have your data and you can do whatever you want with it. And people are like, yeah, but what do I want to do? And there are some things that we see time and time again where customers are trying to hand crank their own thing. And we sit back and we think, do we think we could do a better job of this? And occasionally the answer is yes. And that's why things like this have come out.
Awesome.
Lake Watch. Next, there will be a Lake Witch. That's for Halloween. Stay tuned.
Perfect.
Lovely.
Well, any final sage words of wisdom or any other resources that I can link off as a final takeaway for wrapping up this stream?
No, I think we've got the AI Dev Kit. We've got Free Edition in there and the Agentic Sim. So I think that's enough for people to keep watching for now. But yeah, lots going on in Databricks. Again, we've got our big conference in the summer for Databricks, and we'll be doing lots of announcements there. So you'll probably hear some things in the news around that time of year as well. I know what we're working on. It's really cool, but I can't talk about it. So yeah, keep an eye out. We're doing even more in this space.
Very cool.
Excellent. And I think we got all the links in the chat. So I think with that, I want to thank you so much for coming on for this. This has been a lot of fun. I appreciate the enthusiasm as you go through a lot of the products. So,
all right, thank you so much for having me.
Excellent. And then everyone else, I'll see you on our next stream.